Okay, thank you very much for coming. Welcome to Reigate College. My name's Simon King. I'm the head of maths here at college, and today we're going to talk about women in STEM. So we've got a really good program for you. We've been doing this for quite a few number of years now. So yeah, we've got a good evening planned for you. Before I kind of hand over to our speakers, I just want to give you a bit of context as to where this came from and why I'm running it, because obviously not a woman in STEM. So my background is I went to an all-boys school, locally-ish in Sutton, and then I really enjoyed maths, so I went to do a maths degree at university. Being an all-boys school, I obviously didn't really see the gender disparity that much, because I was like, well, we don't have that mix. I don't know the proportions. It wasn't until I went to university and started doing a maths degree that I actually realized, hang on, there's not many girls doing maths. That's a problem. And the problem was even bigger and more stark with my friends who did computing and engineering. So when I started teaching here, it was always something in the back of my mind that I wanted to get involved with. Just to kind of give you a little bit of kind of broader background beyond me, this has always been for a long time in the public eye, since the 80s, where WISE, who are a society and an organisation who are still running today, identified the need to involve more women in STEM fields. That bottom bullet point there about the 30% uptake, referring to a critical mass, what that meaning is, in order for real meaningful change to happen, a 30% proportion needs to be in place. And I'll show you in some stats in a minute. It's a really good thing that we've got there. So just to kind of give you some statistics, these are both from surveys performed by a charity called STEM Women, and they found that in the year 2017-2018, 35% of people applying and enrolling on STEM courses were female or identified as female. More recently, the proportion has dropped, but you can see the number has increased. This is kind of a nationwide thing that participation in STEM is just increasing generally. So more women in STEM is great. It's a shame the proportion's gone down, but it's still great we're getting more women doing STEM. And you can see the breakdown is there. Physical sciences, things like biology, chemistry, typically don't have that much of a problem enrolling women. Whereas going down with the computing and the engineering, that's where the disparity is really massive. Going on from university and into graduation and into graduate programs, you see the proportion does drop a little bit, but the proportion in 2019, 2022 has increased from what we've seen previously, which again is really positive and showing, pretty consistent increases in those specific fields. So although on the graduate side, we're at that 30% critical mass, we're not quite there, with the university. With the graduate side, we're not quite there. So that's kind of really why I wanted to start up the support available in college for female students doing STEM. I started this a few years ago with the head of chemistry, who can't be here today. We started sort of this small group. I think the first year we did it, we had 4 or 5 students turn up, and now we're getting consistently 20, 30 students turning up every week. It kind of fluctuates year on year, but it's really good to see. Going from graduate programs into the workforce, you can see the statistics there paint a similar picture. But in 2019, the number of women working in STEM fields surpassed 1 million employees, which is a huge milestone. And on almost all different type of professional workplaces, you can see there's been an increase in the proportions, apart from in sort of science professionals, where there's a minor decrease, but still, like we saw with the university applications, the actual physical number has increased. It's just the proportions have decreased, which again is really positive. Now, something that STEM women found when they did their surveys was how much support women needed when going into STEM fields and into the workplace, which again is something where a reason why I really wanted to do this. You can see from the statistics there, women are were more adversely affected by COVID from a professional standpoint, and the vast majority felt that initiatives put in by companies to support not just women employed in STEM, but just general diversity within STEM fields was really, really valuable. From kind of interviews that I've watched online and training sessions I've attended, that sentiment has been echoed all the way through. It's not necessarily a particular woman in STEM working in that field, but someone who is able to support. And that's kind of what I feel my role is. So yeah, we started this program in 2021, so just after COVID. And since then, we've seen a big growth in attendees and kind of in what I have been able to provide for the students. We've got our group that runs pretty much every week, where it gives students a space to kind of sit, chat, do some work, but we also discuss things to do with STEM and sort of hot issues around science. We run events like this, and also I've consistently got external speakers in to speak to the group about their experiences, about being a woman in STEM. Indeed, we've got one next week where I've managed to secure a speaker from UCL coming in who is currently doing her PhD to talk about what it's like doing a PhD, which will be really, really exciting. Big one that I was also really keen to get off the ground because, to be honest, it's what students want, was trips. And for the last 3 years, we have run a really successful trip to the University of Portsmouth. I'll let the students talk about that a little bit later because they're better placed to talk about it than I am. But yeah, University of Portsmouth have been great. They've made a bespoke Women in STEM event just for us that they've run for the past few years, which is massively appreciated. We've got links with our alumni as well, which we're constantly fostering, and you're going to hear from one of our alumni later. So yeah, really getting that kind of legacy feel with the group. And then yeah, sort of a Teams SharePoint page, which is still under development, but is getting there. So lots of areas for students to access support. Just to kind of highlight something else from a Women in STEM point of view, this is more kind of personal to me as the head of maths. Every year we run the Maths Olympiad for Girls, which is much like the Maths Challenge, which some of you may have done. This is a competition specifically designed for girls and young women to participate, compete, and we had these 4 students compete in it this year, which was really, really good. I think they all got at least a merit, and Lydia might have got a distinction, so fantastic results there. So I'm going to stop talking now. So I'm going to pass over to the first of our speakers. Holly has been involved with this event in our Women in STEM group since we started, so very much appreciated. As I said, Som is one of our alumna, and she will be speaking about her experiences through college. We'll then introduce the student panel, and then the final talk before Q&A will be from our Head of Physics and Engineering, Nikki Robinson. So Without further ado, I will hand over to Holly from the Institute of Cancer Research. Big round of applause for Holly, please.
Thank you for the introduction. So as Simon said, I work at the Institute of Cancer Research and I'm a principal statistician here. And it's always a joy to come here and do these events and talking to students, because I remember being where you were and not really knowing what the options were. I knew that I liked maths, but other than teaching and accounting, I didn't really know what else there was. So I always think it's good to come and just introduce some different options and how you would get there. So I'm going to talk a bit about my career path to date. I'm going to talk a bit about the ICR where I work, and I'll go through what the role is as a statistician in clinical trials. I'm going to talk through an example of a particular project that I've been involved in that was particularly interesting, and I promise not to get too technical. And then I'll also just talk a little bit about what work is like beyond just doing the day-to-day job as well. So I've had quite a standard career path to get where I am today. It's not the same for everyone. Lots of people come into the kind of jobs I do with different routes through career changes, and that's absolutely fine. But I always knew that I enjoyed maths. So I went to the University of Bath, where I did my BSc in mathematics. And at the time, I was convinced that I was going to be a teacher, because, as I said, the only options I was really aware of was the accounting and teaching. So when I got to university and started learning a bit more about the different jobs that were available, I decided to do a placement year. So I would really recommend placement years or summer internships, anything you can do that just gives you a little bit of experience working somewhere else, getting to know what different jobs are like. And I did a year working as a statistician at the pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly. So I was based in their statistics team, analysing the data that was coming out of their clinical trials. I decided that I really liked that, and it was the area that I wanted to go into. So I spoke to my supervisor at Eli Lilly and talked to her about what I would need to do to get into doing this as a career. And from that, I ended up, after my final year of my undergraduate, I went to Southampton University and did an MSc in statistics. And they do a very specific degree there, which is medical statistics, which they do in a few different universities as well, which is really specific if you're interested in clinical trials and that kind of area of work. Since graduating about 11 years ago, I applied for a job at the Institute of Cancer Research, and I've been there ever since. So I've really enjoyed working there. And that was back in 2013. And I realised when I finished my master's, I was really interested in doing kind of the research side of things and taking on specific projects. So I was interested in the idea of doing a PhD, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do it in. And my first few years working at the Institute of Cancer Research allowed me to try lots of different types of trials, lots of different types of analyses, and I found there was an area that I was really interested in. And I was very fortunate that there was also a PhD going at the time. So I actually managed to do a PhD through my job as well and get an extra qualification and have that time set aside to focus on a specific project, develop some more skills in that area, and I'm going to talk to you a bit about that in a moment with the project when I describe that. So just to describe a little bit about what the Institute of Cancer Research is, so just like the name suggests, we are an institution and we focus on all things research related to cancer. So anything from kind of drug discovery through to understanding what makes cancer develop, what makes someone more at risk of developing cancer. And I'm based in their clinical trials unit there. So we run clinical trials for any types of cancer treatments. So that's chemotherapies, radiotherapies. Nowadays we do a lot of targeted therapies as well, and some kind of preventative trials as well. And we do it across all different disease areas, so breast, urology, head and neck, all sorts of things. So within the ICR, beyond the clinical trials unit, we also have obviously lots of laboratories. So we have lots of ways that we can kind of work with the biologists and the chemists and the physicists working in radiotherapy as well. So it's kind of a whole broad spectrum of cancer research going on that we get to be involved in. And we get that good link with the scientists as well to actually understand how what we're doing in our clinical trials, how that will actually apply if it goes through to being in real practice as well. So in terms of the role of a statistician in clinical trials, I think for most people, if you ask them what you thought a statistician did, they would probably say this: you do the analysis. So they run a trial, they give you the data, you run the analysis, you send it back. But actually, my job is a lot broader than that. So I get involved right from the start of the trial through to the very end. So while most people think it's just this one little bit here, we're actually involved all the way through. So we get to work with the clinicians and the scientists to help design the trials. So we have to really understand what it is what's the question that the clinicians are trying to answer. And from that, we help to determine, okay, what's the best trial to use? What's the best design? How many patients are we going to need to recruit? And things like that. Even helping to set up the database, test the database, that side of things. And then as the trial is running, we help with cleaning the data. We help with monitoring the trial to make sure that it's recruiting to target. We get really involved the whole way through, and even beyond the analysis, helping to publish the results, going to present the results, and then helping to design, hopefully, the next trial that comes out of that based on the results that we've got. So it's a really varied job, and it's one of the things that I love, is that I'm not doing the same thing day in, day out. So I'll work on maybe 4 or 5 trials at any one time, and they'll all be at different stages in their trial life cycle. So one day I might be writing a manuscript, and the next day I'll be doing a sample size calculation. So it's really varied, and I get to work with lots of different teams of people, so the data managers, the trial managers, right through to the clinicians. And where I work, we have a big focus on patient involvement as well. So that means I even get to talk to the patients about, what's the best way to run a trial? Do you think patients are going to be happy with this design? Are they going to be interested in these endpoints that we've decided on? So you get to talk through the whole kind of process of the trial, which is really interesting. So I'm going to talk now a little bit just about a project, just to kind of give you a flavour of some of the things that you get to be involved in. So the area that I do a lot of my work in is in breast cancer. And there's a particular type of breast cancer, which is known as triple-negative breast cancer. And these are cancers that tend to be a bit more aggressive than other breast cancers. And they generally don't respond to the targeted treatments that we have available. But we know that within this type of breast cancer, we have a number of patients will have what's known as a BRCA mutation. So you may have come across this. So in the news quite a few years ago, this is the gene mutation that Angelina Jolie discovered that she had. So if you have a mutation in this gene, it means you're at a much higher risk of developing cancer, but it also means we have something to target with treatments. So because of the function of this gene, there are specific treatments we can give patients that means they'll be more responsive to these treatments as well. So the aim of this study was, can we identify other patients who don't have the mutation but will have a similar response to the treatment? And is there a way that we can identify these patients so that we can improve the outcomes for patients and not be treating patients who are unlikely to benefit? So the trial took patients who had this type of cancer, and they randomized them between 2 different types of chemotherapy. Overall, the results were really disappointing. So when we looked at the main results, there was no difference between the 2 treatment groups. So the new drug, which is the orange one, was no more effective than the existing drug that we had for patients. However, when we did the analysis by patients who had this mutation, this confirmed what at the time was kind of suspected, but we didn't know for sure. So patients who had this mutation, their response rate increased from 31% to 68% on this drug. So we could identify that these patients would really benefit from this different treatment. And what we wanted to do was understand what was happening with the other patients and see if we could identify the other patients who didn't have it that would respond. So the main results were published, and it was picked up by lots of news articles, so it was presented and it was picked up. And it led on to my PhD, which was looking at how can we identify these patients. So for this, I was able to use we took samples from the patients, and we could look at lots of things to do with their DNA sequencing to understand what was happening in the tumour. And we actually interestingly found, so the markers that we thought would predict response to the new drug didn't seem to be effective in this group of patients. But actually, if you look at these green lines, which are all moving away from the kind of central line, this showed that actually we could identify features which would predict which patients were going to respond to the other drug that we'd used in the trial. So although it didn't find what we'd initially set out to, we could still do some work to identify groups of patients and actually help pick which would be the best drug for those patients. And so this is one of the things that I find really interesting in my job. So I always knew I wanted to use maths, and I get to work in a job where I feel like I'm making a difference and helping patients. So it's using the maths and things that I've learned at school, at university, and doing something that's actually going to impact patients and impact people's lives and help them have better lives and longer lives. And as the statistician, one of the best things is you're the first one to know these results as well. So when this was all picked up by the news agencies and things, it's quite nice to know that you were the first person to see that result and the first person who knew how important that was going to be. So beyond the kind of standard trials work, my job is also very varied, and I get to get involved in lots of other projects. So we have a social media group at work, so I'm part of that group, so I get to help with science communication, and there's lots of other jobs that are around science communication. So if you're interested in science, but you don't necessarily want to be doing the science, there's lots of jobs around that nowadays, especially with all the social media platforms. I've had the opportunity to go to conferences to present my work, and this has been across the UK, but also abroad. So I've been very lucky to go to Texas in America several times to present my work. We have a number of working groups and committees, so actually getting to work with others to decide what direction the research should go in, so what are the areas that are most important, where are we lacking information, and to help kind of shape what our research looks like at work. I get to come and do events like this, so outreach work, getting to explain to other people what's involved in this kind of job. And I also get to do a bit of teaching. So because where I work is an academic institution, I get involved in helping to teach clinicians about clinical trials and cancer. So I've kind of done a full 180 from my initial plan of wanting to be a teacher. So I managed to do a job that I love and I'm really interested in, but I still get to do the teaching on the side, which is a real bonus for me. So I just wanted to end with this slide. So it's not all about the work so much. So we have a lot of social activities at work as well, and we have a really good group of people that we work with. And I wanted to particularly highlight this picture here. So these are our director, our two deputy directors, and our team leader. And as you might notice, they are all women. So a lot of our heads of department where I am, in our particular department, they're all women. And so it's really good to have those people above you and see that it is possible, because if you can see it, you can be it, is kind of the phrase that you've probably all heard. But it also makes a real difference as well in terms of they've been where you've been, they understand the challenges, they have really great policies around flexible working and things as well, so those people who have caring responsibilities or other activities that they need to do outside of work, they really understand that, and it makes it a really good place to work. So I think this is one of the reasons why it's so important that we need that diversity and we need to get the women into the top spots, because they understand for the rest of us and can help pave the way for that. And I will end it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Holly. I've now got great pleasure to introduce Som, who is an ex-Reigate College student who's going to talk about her journey. Really great for me, because Som was one of my students years ago. So thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Som, and just going to talk about kind of a bit of my context, background before I got to Reigate College, and then where I went to university and up to what I'm doing now. So before Reigate, I was at St Bede's. I'm sure many of you in the room either go to St Bede's or have heard of it. And I guess even kind of before that, I was one of the lucky few that knew exactly what I wanted to do when I grow up, or what I'm doing now even, because of my older brother. He was very much into tech, and so when it came to GCSEs, as limited as I could, I kind of narrowed down. So computer science was one of my GCSE subjects. And then at Reigate College, you can see it's very, very STEM, or very maths and computer science. And essentially, I knew that computer science was definitely going to be on there, just because it was one of my favorites from GCSEs. But then I also really enjoyed maths. Maths was probably actually, I think, one of my best subjects at GCSEs. And then it was down to that third subject of what do I do? Do I kind of branch out? Do I stay within maths? And I remember on, I think, the open day, asking a lot of questions about like what actually is further maths, like how much maths is it? Am I going to enjoy it? What sort of stuff do you do? And funnily enough, further maths actually turned out to be one of my favourite out of the 3 subjects. More so because I think it also showed me some of the computer science side, but like the maths application to it, and I really liked that. And then from Reigate College, I went to Loughborough University to do computer science. And kind of, I guess, even before I get to Loughborough, I remember kind of like growing up, like I'd had like a couple comments of like, oh, you kind of really like computers, like that's a bit weird, like that's quite different. And I was very lucky that my brother and my family, just as a whole, were very supportive of me going into like the more STEM subjects, obviously, as Simon showed, like the statistics. And so I remember when I came to college and my computer science teacher, she was actually a woman. And she made such a huge impact in my journey of computer science. Like I kind of knew I wanted to go into it, but she really pushed and she really advocated. And I remember my final year project in year 13, and year 13? Yeah, year 13. And that was actually, I built like a travel website. And that went kind of beyond just being coursework, because I got so into it. I was like, oh, I can add this and I can do that. And she really supported me. Like I'd go and sit in her room at lunch sometimes and she'd be like, you know, you don't need to do any more stuff than what you've already added into it. But it was just so much fun and she was super supportive. And so when I went to university, I did computer science, and it's really good in terms of like going over the basics. But because I'd done a lot of like projects kind of before that or just throughout, it made my development and just going into the world of tech a lot more interesting. So at the bottom, I've just put kind of some of the things that I worked on. So the first one was an Igbo language learning app, and that's just, so Igbo is just a language/tribe within Nigeria. And that was one of the projects that allowed me to mix something that's quite important to me, so like my heritage, with tech. And it was really cool getting to see just how many different ways I could apply things in my life to technology. If I could think it, I could build it. If I could draw it on paper or design it online, then I could build it. The second one, Nestwork, I'll get onto on the next slide. And then the other 2 are just kind of also organizations that I worked with throughout university that gave me a bit more experience, but also just a really fun space to learn and develop my technical understanding and programming. So I'm more front end, and what that means is kind of the more visual, the more design side of computer science. So if you open a website, what you see would have been built by front end developers. So that was something I really enjoyed. Another thing I did during university was internships. So an internship or placements, some people do, or spring weeks. So they're essentially ways that you can work at a company, whether it's for a week, a summer, or even up to a year. And it gave me real-world experience of like, okay, these are how I'm applying it in my personal life, just really quickly, more informal applications. But then when I did a summer internship in my first and second year, I worked at JP Morgan. And this allowed me to see how do I transfer what I'm doing, like within my modules and courseworks, and actually see it in real life in an actual application that people are using. And it was really cool because it was like, I'm building something that's going to be used by either other developers in the bank or by millions of users. And I think kind of the internship route is what also allowed me to get my graduate job that I'm currently in now. So being able to do kind of like, even when I was in college, actually, I did a few insight days with different banks or different universities that ran insight days. And it kind of was just a really nice stepping stone to not only apply what I was learning at that point in time, but to also actually see how is what I'm learning now going to actually affect or translate into the real world. So present day, so I graduated 2 years ago, and I got my graduate role at JP Morgan. So in my graduate role, I am a front-end developer. So I don't know if you've heard of Chase UK, the digital bank, quite similar to like your Monzos, your Starlings. So essentially, I work within that division, which is quite cool because I'm also a customer, so I bank with them. So I get to see, all of the changes that I make, and I get to like send a screenshot to like my family or friends and be like, oh, I did that, which I find really cool. Just being able to see what I build, and also realize that I'm making changes to something that's used by millions of customers all over the UK, which is something I most definitely would not have imagined when I was building my travel website for myself for fun back in college. And then the second one is a startup that I co-founded when I was in my third year of university. And I do them both at the same time, but essentially what Nestwork is it's a careers education platform for university students. And we started it in third year because we realized that, I guess when you get to uni, sometimes you don't necessarily, you kind of done so much prep to get to uni, and then you get to uni and you're like, okay, but what do I still want to do? And what we found is that a lot of people don't necessarily know about what opportunities are available to them in first year, in second year, and in third year. And then they'd get to third year, and that's when they're like, oh, okay, I should probably start looking now or trying to figure it out. And it's such a massive world out here. And so Nestwork was born to kind of just help give back to students that we were in those positions of, I need help with either an application or finding jobs. And I get to essentially lead on all things tech. So not only do I do front end, so what the users actually see, I get to do back end development, so the data that makes everything else run. I get to do anything tech, you name it. I've done it, I do it, but I'm still learning, and it's probably one of my favorite applications to just be working on because there is so much tech and so many things to learn in the world, and it kind of gives me a bit more structure in terms of what I'm learning, but I also get to apply kind of latest technology, so obviously things like AI is a lot harder to implement in a corporate environment because obviously, one, I work in a bank, so there's a lot more kind of rules and regulations to get into it, whereas obviously in the startup, we get to be a bit more adventurous. So I get to try new things, and I'm forever learning and forever growing. And not only did it tap into like the technical side, but I also get to do obviously a lot of the business side. So last year we did a lot of raising investment. So that was kind of building up my pitching and public speaking. So I hope I'm doing okay. But yeah, so I think kind of from where I started in Reigate College, did I see where I'd get to now? Absolutely not. But it's been, every step has helped me get to the next. So right from college, doing like computer science and obviously maths, that helped me a lot with my degree and getting through those 3 years. And then my degree obviously helped me with what I do now. And then outside of the tech stuff, I do a lot of networking events or panels or just kind of giving back to like early talent and junior talent, just because I remember a lot of the different situations and opportunities that I either did have or wished I had. So it's been quite nice to either create those events or participate in those events. So yeah, I guess that's me from Reigate till now.
Thank you very much, Som. So before I pass over to our final speaker, I just want to take the opportunity now to get our student panel to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about kind of their experiences at college, and for the students who have been kind of going through the university application process at the moment, what they're thinking of applying for. So yeah, if we start at this end.
Hello, my name is Trixie Lawrence. I'm currently studying biology, chemistry and politics. I want to go on to study natural sciences at university and specifically choose biology and chemistry. I'm yet to press pay and submit on my UCAS application. That's something I really need to do tonight. But yeah, I absolutely love it.
Hi, I'm Hallie Palmer. I'm in year 12, so I'm not at the university stage yet. I currently study biology, chemistry and sociology. But for university, I am considering biomedical science and biochemistry, either or. But there's so much of a big world out there, so keeping my options open.
Hi, I'm Isabella Emanuel. I take maths, further maths, history and sociology. I'm still completely torn with what to apply for university, but I'm in the lower sixth, so I've got a lot of time, hopefully.
I'm Abigail, so I'm in year 13, and I do biology, chemistry and physics A-levels, and I have applied for medicine at university.
Hi, I'm Liesel. I'm doing biology, chemistry, maths. I'm year 13 and I'm applying for veterinary medicine at university.
Hi, I'm Matilda. I'm studying philosophy, maths and physics. I'm in year 12 and I don't know exactly what I want to go into, but it's definitely going to be something physics related. So
Excellent. Thank you very much. So yeah, the three upper six students, you obviously were involved quite heavily with Women in STEM last year. I mentioned the University of Portsmouth trip that we went on. What did you think of it? Yeah, just kind of what were your thoughts about it? What did you particularly enjoy?
I absolutely loved it as a trip. My favourite thing was quite possibly going into their space room because they had loads of technology laid out and everything just looked crazy and out of a sci-fi movie. And they discussed how they were sending this cube spaceship thing. I don't do physics or spacey stuff, but they were going to fly it to the moon and then collect radio waves from the dark side of the moon before too many too many satellites got around the moon and it would block all the signal, and then they were going to crash the cube into the moon afterwards just for fun, because why not? Let's see what happens. It was great.
I didn't go.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
You didn't.
I wanted to, I just couldn't.
Yeah, that's fair.
I was very sad to miss it, but a lot of my friends went and said they had a really good time, and it was really helpful for considering, different options for uni.
Yeah, they gave us a lot of really broad day, with a big emphasis on the physics, Trixie's mentioned. The one that most students tend to remember is building a bridge out of Lego.
Oh, I completely forgot about that. It's so much fun. You don't know how competitive other people are, because I think I'm quite a competitive person. But it was good.
Yeah, and we also got the opportunity to see their materials lab, looking at smart materials that change shape when you heat them up, and we also got to see their university race car, which was quite cool. A lot of universities will have race car teams, particularly engineering. Universities have a high engineering component, so we were very lucky that the student team happened to be working on it while we were there, which was very, very cool. Abby and Liesl, I guess then, in terms of what were your experiences with Women in STEM last year? Kind of how did you feel about the whole group?
I find it very supportive, even just to like speak to other people doing my subjects, and also because you're a maths teacher, like if I needed help with maths homework, it was a great resource. Also, like speaking to other people doing the same subjects to help with homeworks. But also we had, I found really useful, we had a chemical engineering speaker, and I'm not applying for chemical engineering, but I found it really interesting to go to just in case to like, if I didn't know what I wanted to do already, it really opened those doors. And also there was, she talked a lot about a degree but abroad, and I've like recommended that a lot to my friends and to my younger sister, and I think it's just opened so many doors, like all the guest speakers.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed being able to come along and chat to people who are doing kind of similar things, and like made some really good friends, especially like one of my really close friends. I literally don't do any of the same subjects as her, but I met her through Women in STEM, which was really nice. And yeah, the speakers as well were really good. And in fact, one of my friends, I invited her to one of the speakers we had to come in, and I think it was something like the chemical engineering or one of them, and it's basically now the reason why she discovered like what she wants to do for her degree, because she wants to apply for biotechnology at uni. So.
Great. And the Year 12 students, you've obviously been here for half term and a bit now. How have you guys found the Women in STEM group?
I found it really supportive at the start because you are required to go into a club, and this was just definitely the one that I thought was most interesting. And I went into it and I was really, really worried because they always say this is the best chance to make friends. And I actually did make some friends in it, and it's more just because I do maths and further maths, and most people in there do maybe biology, chemistry, physics or something. They don't fully do maths. And it was just quite interesting, especially with my friend Hallie, who's very interested in biology. It's interesting to find the different sides of maths in different things, because I was horrific at all science subjects in high school, and now I'm slowly finding it more interesting.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to go? I can go. So it's a very good cohort of people. It's obviously you have people doing just maths, you have people doing chemistry, biology. It's all the sciences. You'll find someone who's doing the same as you, and that's really good, and it's very sociable, because especially when Simon gives us a debative like topic, and it can be quite controversial, some things, but it's so good to hear other people's perspectives, especially from ethics. Remember we were having a conversation about like ethical of genetic engineering, and that's currently my EPQ, just saying. But so we were having that big debate and how if it can be good or can't, and it widens your perspective and see how different people think in such a broad, like despite the fact we're all women, we're all different minds and different people, and it's so lovely to just meet new people and have those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great for me. I was very similar, nervous at the start, and I was like, oh, what's it going to be like? But I actually made a couple of good friends. Yeah, that was really nice, and the TED Talks were great because they actually, ended up stimulating some really thought-provoking conversations, and that's the kind of stuff I like. I like thinking deeply about things and really getting your teeth sunk into that, and I love learning about all these other really inspirational women in STEM. So it gives me all these other role models to look up to. And that gives you more motivation as well, as I think it was mentioned earlier, when you see someone else doing it, you feel like, yeah, I can really achieve that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just speaking about different fields, it's speaking about the confidence of women in certain fields, feeling like very isolated in what you're doing. But if you listen to far more influential women who have had the opportunity to do this, it just makes you feel a lot more inspired.
Fantastic, thank you. So last question, or last kind of point before I hand over to Nikki. Hallie, you mentioned EPQ. Trixie, I know you've done an EPQ. I can't remember if you for EPQs. Yes?
Started.
Yeah, as well. Yeah. What is an EPQ and how have you found it?
The EPQ's extended project qualification. You can do 2 types. You can do a dissertation and research a specific question and write loads of words. I didn't want to do that. I pretty much immediately crossed it out. So I chose the artifact corner, where you make a thing and then write about it. I decided to put on a play because I really like drama and I like public speaking. That's probably why I'm here. And I wanted to do something that was away from my subjects, and that was how I've made some of my closest friends at the moment, because I cast a group of 8 people to put on a play called The Last Resort. If you are a young aspiring director, I know this isn't probably the crowd for that, but it is a great play to start off with because there's loads of groups and you can explore loads of things and creativity and join people together. And for the hell of it, I made it even more difficult and put it in traverse. So I had the audience on 2 sides, because why not? And so a while ago, in this very room, in this very space, I performed with my cast, and it was absolutely fantastic. And it meant I only had to write half the number of words as other people. And I am showing off about that fact because everyone else was stressing about it. And I said, I only have to write half. It's great.
Yeah, I'm not the one for that, and I don't think most people will be. I'm currently looking at doing a dissertation. As I said, my current topic is on the ethics of genetic engineering and modification, and if it's actually right to do for either morally or just towards animals or mammals and all that. So you can have the option to not put on a performance and write an essay, which currently you'll put in Aspire groups, which are, some of them are based on your grade average. So it'll be about 6.5 and above, which is around, you'll be just put into these groups so that you can get extra help on your EPQ, on universities, and you do lots of research, and you can actually make a lot more friends. I've made quite a few friends in there. So it's very much a helpful space. You do get assistance and guidance to what you're doing, and there's you have your mentor who's very helpful and will be willing to put in the effort to actually help you research and help you have a good title and a good start and a good place to where you are, which is very lovely, even though you're not just thrown into the deep end and shown to swim.
Last one.
I'm doing, it's quite a broad title. I'm looking at unifying theories and physics and philosophy. I haven't narrowed it down exactly. But with the EPQ, the support has been great because I was really nervous at the beginning. As well as the dissertation, which is what I'm doing, you've got a presentation and then you've got to record all of this research. That's pretty much it.
Fantastic, thank you. You'll have the opportunity towards the end of this evening to ask any of our panel or our speakers any questions you might have. So if you have specific questions about kind of what EPQ is about, feel free to ask. Now our final speaker needs no introduction. I'll still give her one. So Nikki is, I think, probably the woman in STEM at Reigate College. Head of physics and head of engineering, or joint head of engineering? Yeah, more or less. Has been fantastic and really supportive of me doing this group and talks like this, again, since we started. So, Nikki Robinson.
Thank you. Lovely, thank you. Oh, I'm on, that's good. Right, okay, that's not me. That's not me. Okay, that might be me. Okay, right, well, thank you, first of all, to this wonderful, eloquent panel of upper six and lower six. Amazing to hear your views, and so eloquently expressed. That's fantastic. And also to Sam and Holly. I think from Sam and Holly's talks, you've seen the sheer joy that they have in doing their careers. They absolutely adore their jobs. And that, I think, is one of the massive things about a career in STEM, is that you love what you do. Genuinely, you do. And you know what? If you change your mind and go, do you know what? I've had enough of doing cancer research. I can't ever imagine that happening for Holly, but imagine that has happened. She has so many skills already in terms of massive loads of team working, being able to present really well. She's got a fantastic analytical brain. That's totally transferable. And maybe in the future, maybe Holly wants to become a teacher full-time. I don't know. It's kind of sounding like she's heading that way. I don't know. Go on, Holly, we need you. Okay, that would be brilliant. So hopefully you're also beginning to see the breadth and depth of the types of careers that you could go into. And that's kind of where I'm going to head now. So I'm going to be a bit indulgent. I'm going to tell you about my journey in kind of getting here, I suppose. So who am I? Where did I start? If I take myself back to where you are today, there was a bit of a head and a bit of a heart going on there. It was kind of, what am I going to do for A-level? And I just kind of went with what I really, really enjoy. And that was maths, and that was physics, and that was geography. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good with that. And then I got to the end of my A-levels, and I went, well, what's now? And I'm quite indecisive, so I thought, well, how do I avoid making that decision? And avoiding making that decision meant that I went to do natural sciences. So it's a really good plan, isn't it? If you can't make your mind up, do natural sciences, because what you do is you pick lots of different topics in your first year. So for example, I did maths, physics, geology, and then a branch of sort of physical chemistry called crystalline materials. And then gradually I sort of worked it out and went, oh, no, I quite like geology because you get to go outside and you get to, I don't know, go to cool places like Scotland and Greece and amazing places where you can study rocks. And it's quite warm in Greece, and that's nice. And you couldn't. There were quite a lot of geologists, actually, in my undergrad, who then went on to do PhDs on coral reefs. I don't know why. What attracts you to the Caribbean? Anyway, there we go. So natural sciences for me. I then narrowed down into geology. And I got to the end of that and went, oh, no, I've got to make another decision. OK, so hang on. That was the first decision. So that was where to go to university. That's the Senate House in Cambridge, if you didn't know. And then I got to the end of that and went, oh, decision time. And actually, again, it was kind of head and heart. So heart said, I don't want to go into oil and gas. There's no future there. We need to scrap it. I wasn't that keen on mining either. I thought, I know, I'm going to become a hydrogeologist. Now, that's quite niche. You're probably thinking, what the heck is that? So a hydrogeologist, and that's me at UCL doing my MSc in hydrogeology. A hydrogeologist is somebody who looks at the flow of underground water in rocks. So you've got to know about your rocks, and you've got to know the physics of the water. So it's all sort of combined together. And so that's what I did, an MSc in hydrogeology. Hydrogeologists have two main pathways they can go down. They can either become a clean water hydrogeologist, and you do the kind of glamorous stuff. You go out to Africa and you kind of dig a well for a village and you feel very, very good about it. And the other type is a contaminated land hydrogeologist, where it's not quite so glamorous. Quite frankly, you get pretty mucky and dirty, and you go and do something like that top right-hand slide, which is you will help out doing something like soil washing. Yeah, that's the thing people do. Okay, so to remediate land, they will literally wash it through. Or you might pump out water from the ground, treat it through some activated carbon, and then pump it back in now that it's clean. So hydrogeologists do all that sort of thing. After my MSc, I then went into consultancy. Now, as a female, quite a number of years ago, an undisclosed amount of years ago, there wasn't a lot of kit for females to go out on site. So you had to make do with what you could find. So I want you to have this image in your head of somebody in a high-vis coat that came down to about there, okay? All right. You then had to wear a boiler suit because it needed to protect all your clothes from whatever disgustingness you were finding on site. But the boiler suit was for a man who was about 6 foot high, and I'm only like 5'3", right? So I had to take up about that much from the bottom of the boiler suit. By which point, the crotch of the boiler suit's kind of round my knees. So you're kind of walking like that, right? And then you're in some nice steel toe cap boots, which are 2 sizes too big, so you've got 3 pairs of socks on. So my goodness, that was glamorous. Can you imagine? Yeah. What I would say is fantastic. It's got so much better, okay? You can now get site kit that fits you as a female, and jolly rightly so, okay. So that's kind of where I was. During my site days, I spent a lot of time with drillers, digging holes, drilling holes, and things like that. You got very, very good at finding the nearest bacon butty, all right? If you bribe your drillers with bacon butties every morning, they will go to the ends of the earth for you. And you're also very good at finding DIY shops. Anyway, so after spending quite a long time on site, I was like, feeling a bit chilly. I want to go back inside. So I went back to UCLHG to do a research fellowship and a PhD at the same time. So just like Holly, you do your PhD whilst you're busy working, which is quite a cunning thing to do because it means you get paid as well as studying. But it does mean you lose a lot of your evenings because you're busy studying in those evenings. But it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. And it was around about that time that I got involved in the Geological Society. So every, what would you say, every sort of academic niche subject will have its own professional organisation that regulates what people do and how you do it, making sure that everybody's doing the right thing and giving good advice. So I got involved a lot in the Geological Society, gave quite a few presentations on the various bits of research that I was doing, and actually I am still involved now. So I was the chair for the hydrogeological group of the Geological Society. Yes, it's niche, isn't it? There aren't many of us. We are a very niche society. Those are all the chairs that have been over the 50 years of the group, and it was our birthday as a group about 6 weeks ago. So college let me out. Felt like a naughty school kid. I was like, oh, skipping college. It's really cool. It was very exciting to have a birthday cake. Anyway, there we go. So that was, I still go to conferences, and I am still a hydrogeologist. I think college, no, actually. So on my days off, I do all sorts, my days off, my 1 day off a week, I do all sorts of other things other than teach. So I get involved in lots of flood schemes. So that's a site in Kendal. It's developing flood defences for that. York, Rotherham, Godalming, all sorts of different places. What else do I do? Oh, yeah, that's reminded me. Okay, that is a new hospital site that is just outside Glasgow. They've decided, in their wisdom, that they're going to take an old old coal mine, and they're going to cut off the top of the coal mine. Imagine what coal mines look like. There's loads of pillars and holes and channels and things. They're going to cut the top off, right, and they're going to put a hospital right on the top of it. So the engineering behind that is quite phenomenal to prepare that site ready for this beautiful purpose-built hospital. You can probably see these buildings here. Those are all of the operating theatres, and they go through about sort of 3 stories down. So there are so many of them. It's absolutely fantastic. So that's that one. And what else am I doing? I'm also helping out on a site which is near Peterhead, which is north of Aberdeen. And that's where all of the electricity comes in from all the wind farms. So they're building a huge battery bank, okay, where they're going to store that energy when, the wind has dropped. When does it ever drop? When the wind drops, and store that, and then it can be put into the grid. So I'm hoping to design that as well. So there's absolutely loads that you can get involved with. This is all physics, it's all geology, it's all maths, and there's such a variety of things that you can get stuck into. Halfway through doing all of this, I decided I'd retrain as a teacher, because you do. And a bit like Holly, I was busy doing quite a lot of training of people and discovered I really liked it. I really loved training people, and yeah, why not try and scratch an itch? So retrained, done all sorts of things at college. So I've taken people on astronomy trips. This is me an open evening with an infrared camera and a lovely, great big Rubens tube. I don't know whether you've ever seen a Rubens tube. If you've been to the open evenings and you popped into physics, you may well have seen me there, where you basically have an 8-foot long gas tube which you light and play music down it. Anyway, that's that. It's quite good fun. So that's me. What hopefully you can see from that is that there's such a broad range of things that you can go into. all three of us, I suppose, we're all giving back to society, and that does have a warm, glowy feeling. There are not that many professions out there where you go, yeah, no, actually, I have made a difference. And that's fantastic, I think, to feel that. Yeah, and I'm still doing my assessing of chartered geologists every now and again as well, just because I'm not busy enough. Right, there we go. So you can do whatever you want to do. Literally, with a STEM career, you have all the building blocks that you need, this team building, this analysis kind of brain, this, you've got it all. So if you put in some hard work, you can literally switch halfway through your career. Why not? It's good. So why I don't need to convince you to do STEM, I don't think, because you're already here. But just in case you had any niggling doubts, here are some statistics that will absolutely convince you. Okay, first of all, girls are really, really good at STEM. We're better than the boys. Sorry, boys. Okay. Statistically, there we go, 78.9% of female engineering students get a first or upper second compared to 73 of male, okay? And we get more A star to C at A level. That's pretty good, okay? What's wonderful for all of you out here thinking, well, what happens if I go to university and do STEM, is your career opportunities are huge. The number of job opportunities in STEM at the moment is phenomenal, and I will show you that in a moment. It's incredible. It keeps growing, the UK workforce, in terms of STEM. We're up to 19.2%. That's quite a lot, okay? And it's growing all the time. And the ability to have this rewarding career, give back, contribute to, I don't know, finding ways round climate change, adapting to it, trying to deal with it, to be able to say, I did that. That's a really cool thing. Right. I'm going back to these job prospect things. Now, the UK government, every few months, puts out something called the UK Shortage Occupation List. And if you want to come to the UK and be a resident here, then essentially they will open their doors to you if you have these particular skill sets. And out of the 31 categories that are currently on there, so I think this is as of April this year, this is the latest data that we have, then I'd like you to take a look at this. 19 out of 31 are all STEM related. Let's have a look at the number of engineering jobs we've got going down here. We've not only got geologists, hydrogeologists are always on there. We're a very rare breed. You've got lots of biochemists as well, pathologists, endocrinologists. Look at that, that's very, very cool. Lots of chemists. Look at all these engineers, civil, mechanical, electrical. Any branch of engineering, we need you, okay? Seriously, we need you. You can walk into a job tomorrow. I could walk into a different job tomorrow. I'm not going to. Don't worry, Simon. I'm not going anywhere just yet. All right? Okay. But look, here's the next page. There's even more of them. And crucially, a lot more IT and software stuff here. We've got web design and development professionals, lots of programmers, software development. It may be in your STEM career you'll end up doing a lot of this stuff as well. So throughout my PhD and onwards, I've done loads of coding and programming. You just become good at these things. You know, you can adapt. That's the skill set that you have. So it's all good news, really. It is all good news. Which says 2024, 15.7% of those working in engineering were female, compared to only 10% in 2010. So the number of females, the balance is beginning to shift, and we want it to keep shifting. You know, just small examples like wearing silly hats and boiler suits and all the rest of it. That's got better. All these things have got better as more and more females come through, pave the way, and change the way in which we work. Okay. Got loads more people in engineering, loads more females working in engineering, and there's a general expansion of the whole workforce, which is a fantastic thing. So it's all positive. I can't see any downsides at the moment. I'm not seeing any of them. You've got so many opportunities out there, so many, to contribute back to society. Think of all the problems that you could contribute towards solving, all right? Maybe not solving, maybe we're not going to solve, the climate problem, but maybe we can adapt to it, maybe we can help. So let's think about things like carbon capture and storage. Where can we put the carbon so that it's safely locked away? How do we do that? Okay. How do we change our energy portfolio? How do we move away from oil and gas? We seem to have managed to wean ourselves off coal, so they've closed down the last coal-powered fire station, I think, and I think the last coal mine's gone as well. So from being the first in the world to do, I suppose, start the Industrial Revolution, we've been the first to get rid of the coal. So, it's good, is it? We're getting there. But things like, transport options. How do we encourage people to go more down the electric car route? Because that's kind of plateaued at the moment, the number of electric cars that people are buying and putting on the road. So, how do you promote that? That would be an amazing thing to be able to do, wouldn't it? Get everybody to switch, get something that is affordable and easy to charge. You might want to tackle some of the more ethical problems. So I know Simon likes to kind of throw interesting problems at you guys. And we can't back away from those ethical problems. It's good to tackle them head on. So I like the stuff about all the genetic modification stuff. I think that's great. It's really, really good. So you've got so many opportunities out there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you some of our alumni, the sorts of things that they've done in their careers as well. And then I will hand you over for some Q&A. So we've got, I think Jess has spoken to us before, actually. She's been at one of these evenings. So she works currently with Tesla in Germany. I had the pleasure of teaching Jess, which was lovely. That's been around this long. So she did further maths, physics, and geography, so a little bit like me, off to Imperial, and she's done amazingly well. She had, I think, one of the placement years as well. So if you're thinking of university, I think one of the placement years is such a good idea, or a year out in industry, because it gives you a route into a job directly if you're good in that placement year. We've got Tegan. So she's off doing microbiology at Leeds and currently working at the Wellcome Trust, doing a PhD. So we've got so many alumni off to do really exciting things. So MSci in environmental science, biology, geography, maths, brilliant. Okay, we obviously need plenty of environmental sciences scientists out there. Mott MacDonald, rather large consultancy, and one for whom I've done plenty of work for in the past too, strangely enough. We've got Sophie, off she goes to do cybersecurity. That's got to be exciting, hasn't it? I mean, that's got to be quite cool. You kind of feel like that's poacher turned, what's the expression I'm looking for? Anyway, yes. Cybersecurity, that's got to be fun, sort of digging into the depths and trying to unpick things and trying to, get in the back door of websites. That would be fantastic. That would be lots of fun. Lauren, off to do a little bit of product design there, Brunel. And Laura, who also, like a couple of us around in this room, couldn't make up her mind, off to do natural sciences, this time at Durham. Have I got anyone else? Oh, yes, mustn't forget Laura. Obviously, another indecisive person. It's great, isn't it? Indecision, it's okay, doesn't matter, okay? You can put off that moment of having to make any decision and then follow your heart, okay? Go with what you enjoy. I think that's probably the main message that I have. Go with what you enjoy because you'll be really motivated to do it and you'll have a great time. Okay? And there will always be a job there in that thing that you enjoy. Maybe you don't know about it yet, but it is there. Okay? And I think finally we've got Deborah off to do chemical engineering. So fantastic. So, and Maeve. There's so many. Could keep going. Not going to keep going. But I think to conclude, the take-home message is you can adapt. You can do whatever it is that you want to do. Put in the hard work. And you can literally, the world is your oyster. Go grab it.
Thank you very much, Nikki. So we've got about sort of 10, 15 minutes left. for this evening, so I want to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions from any one of our panel today. If it's for our students or our speakers, please feel free to ask any questions.
I think I was quite, I guess, lucky in a sense that I started working like corporate 2 years ago, and at my company they have a lot of initiatives that, whether it's for women or like diversity ones. So by joining those, I've been able to kind of find spaces that I can get support and go to people if I ever do feel like I'm not too sure what route to go. So I guess kind of my corporate experience, I've been quite lucky in a sense that I haven't faced too many, I guess, adversities. And it's, when I look around at like the other developers, it is also nice to see that there is that mix of, like it's not just men, or it's not just, like there's a lot more diversity. Obviously, kind of the higher up level-wise you get, it does start to kind of come down. But as you said, like when you can see someone at the top, it is quite nice. And so yeah, I think there's kind of a balance. Like there's definitely a lot of support groups available, especially for like the early stage. I think as you get a bit senior, I think that's where you start to hear a bit more of the challenges. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I've been very lucky as well, because, or maybe not, maybe this is the way it's going, hopefully. Like I said, in the department I work in, our director, both our deputy directors are women, and they've always been very supportive. In fact, I think more than 50% of our department are female. So I haven't really had any adversity from that side of things. And we're also, so the company as a whole is part of the Athena Swan programme, which is about kind of increasing diversity and supporting women in science careers. So there is a big focus, and there's lots of things going on to support women in this area. There's lots of mentorship schemes now. So I think things are hopefully improving.
Well, I would second that as well, because I think when I first started in sort of, it was very much a male-dominated environment. If you go out on site, it's all male drillers, and it's quite, yeah, it's very masculine, really. Yeah. Occasionally, you know, if you were on the end of a telephone or something like that, or you had an email, or you've been doing an email exchange between various people, and you sign off, you know, Dr. Robinson or whatever, then you turn up and meet them in person. Probably 20 years ago, I would have got comments, "Oh, you're a woman." It's like, "Oh, cheers. Yeah, I am. Had you noticed? Thanks. Cheers." But that genuinely doesn't happen anymore. I don't get that. So the whole, yeah, it's changed the environment. It's good.
It's just good.
Yeah.
Applied. Very much.
Yeah, I definitely say applied. I think I was even saying earlier, like my favorite, like from A levels, my favorite module was decision, because it was actually seeing the application in like the computer science side. I'm not a raw numbers person.
Fair enough.
Yeah, me too.
And those of you who do maths, or further maths, where's your flavour with?
I way prefer the raw numbers so far.
Prefer the raw numbers so far?
To be fair, I haven't really done much of applied because I only just really started. But so far, I definitely prefer the pure side. But I think as I go into further maths and I do like further mechanics and things, I'll probably prefer that more. But just because it's more familiar to me from GCSE, I probably prefer the pure right now.
Yep, fair enough. Other mathematicians?
Sorry. I think I've done a bit of statistics and I've done a bit of mechanics, but I think I still prefer pure, just because it sounds really stupid when I say it out loud, but I can visualize it better than the applied. I don't know whether it's just like my brain doesn't wire physics, but I don't know, the pure just makes sense and it's logical and I can work through it, and it's just I don't have to think as much as mechanics, and it's just, yeah, it's nicer.
Yeah, I'd say probably applied. There are some parts of the pure I do really, really love, because I do love maths, but physics is just, I'm sorry, it's just better.
Don't apologise. I don't take it personally much. Trixie?
Oh, I retired from maths for a reason.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yeah, I just avoided pure maths by just doing physics.
Yeah.
That was literally
Yeah.
the most extreme way to choose the applied maths.
Yeah. Lovely. Good question. Thank you.
I think there is a benefit to doing something that's sciencey related. I know a lot of people in my current upper sixth pathway for selecting uni stuff, they've done a sciencey related stuff, and we're now doing a project where we're just researching a thing, making a PowerPoint, we're doing carbon capture and storage. And all of them are talking about, oh, we did nanotechnology for their EPQ or carbon capture technology. And I'm thinking, I put on a play. How do... anyway, so they've got an extra sort of... They've found something they're really, really passionate about, had loads of fun researching it, and just then enjoyed doing the write-up. So for an EPQ, it's purely what you find most fascinating, and wherever that lands, in whatever subject, whether you're researching why clown noses are red, or, you know, nanotechnology, go for it.
Any other thoughts to add on top of that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I asked I think it was my current Aspire tutor, I can't remember who, the exact same question. And he said very similar thing to what you said, to do with passion. You have to be passionate about it. He did also say that it is good if you kind of know what you want to go into, that it's something related. That can be something really helpful. But if it's not, don't really worry about it, because as long as it's something that you're passionate about, that is the most important thing. I wouldn't say you can research absolutely any question, but anything which you can look into a bit more deeply and say to what extent you agree with, then yeah, that's absolutely fine.
You're going to write nearly 5,000 words on it, or however many. You want to be passionate about it and not just do it for university applications, because you are doing it pretty much independently for a lot of it. So you don't want to be doing something that's purely just so you can get good applications. Do it because you enjoy it.
Anything else to add? No. So I was very lucky a few years ago to be an EPQ tutor. So I got to read quite a few EPQs. Tegan, who Nikki had up in her presentation, was one of the ones I read. And they were really, really broad. I think in that year I had, was reading one about how feasible is it to clean plastic from the oceans, one about how solar sails work and whether that's a feasible form of space tourism, one about whether the badger cull was effective to reduce TB, and I've said her name and I can't remember what Tegan's was on. It was something to do with medicine, but I can't remember what it is. So it is really, really broad. But as the students have said, the key thing with the EPQ is pick something that you are interested in. If that's science, great. If it's not, doesn't matter. Every year, I always get a couple of students asking me, well, how do I do maths EPQ? And that's about the one STEM I'm like, maths EPQ is really hard. Because a lot of the whole point of an EPQ is you discuss an argument. There's not really, at the level of maths that, like, even I understand to some point, to some extent, arguing that is really, really hard. So maths EPQ, probably not most sensible, but yeah, very much any sort of science, you know, do a play. We've had students in the past, particularly students who are keen on architecture or product design. They build and design a house, that kind of thing. So it's very much in terms of what you want to do.
Because I just started, I obviously do maths and further maths, so I do have double the lessons. But because you, as I said, you do start with pure, you do start with the sort of the raw numbers that you're used to at GCSE, it isn't a difficult transition, because what you're starting to do is stuff you're already familiar with, like you're starting with trigonometry, you're starting with just simple things, and then you do just build on it. Like, there are a few things that I had never seen at GCSE, but now that I've started it, because it's all building blocks from GCSE, it's much easier. And then once you've sort of done your basic pure, going into mechanics, even if you don't do physics, or going in statistics, even if you don't do whatever, it makes it a lot easier because you've still got that basic bit of A-level maths.
so it's not that bad.
Yeah, I would say the transition isn't that bad. I mean, I did do further maths GCSE, so I actually finished my maths GCSE like a year early. So I'd already started doing some A-level maths, so that transition was probably even easier for me because I had the opportunity to do further maths GCSE. But I have to say my teacher's been really amazing because there were a couple of questions which I really struggled with. And I was like, oh, you know, do you have any interventions or anything? And she was great. She was like, oh, we'll compare timetables and set something up. Yes, I'm just really thankful to her for that.
Oh, and if you do further maths, you don't jump right into further maths content, so it's okay. I was really worried, but it's fine.
And what about the non-maths part? How's the transition from GCSE into other STEM subjects?
Well, for biology and chemistry, for chemistry, it very much is heavily built on GCSE content. I feel I'm in the second topic of chemistry, but it's very much, the first things are very much what you know, so it's very familiar, very much, you just use it again, you might use it in few different little scenarios, lots of practicals, very fun, I will say, all the time, much more than GCSE. But it's very much you just build off of what you know. For biology, it's kind of a different story. It's not hard, but it's very much you get a whole. Some of the things you do know. Since you do such a broad thing in GCSE biology, then it's very much broad for A level, of course. So you do lots of new things as well, but you also find things which you go, oh, I know that. That's familiar. So it's always. Whatever subject you pick in STEM, there's always going to be something that you will know. And it's very much comforting. You think that everything's going to be brand new, you don't know what you're doing, but you will find something that you will know. And it's very much more comforting when you're in that situation. So it's not as daunting as you would expect.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
I know when I went from GCSEs to A-levels, I was a tiny bit terrified. But the college on the website has loads of summer work, which might sound like hell to some of you. I do advise giving it a look over it because it says that your teachers will look at it, and some do, some don't. But out of pure fear, do not leave it until the night before college. Get it done in the summer and just have fun, enjoy looking into it, and then you can actually spend time on it, and it's not horrible. But yeah.
Yeah, I would say transition, because the other subjects I'm doing physics and philosophy. I didn't do philosophy GCSE. I would say it is quite heavy. It is a very heavy subject, but I'm really passionate about it. So I didn't find the transition that hard because I did a lot of revision for GCSE, so I felt like I was prepared for the workload. But in terms of physics, for me, that was a big step up. But then I love it and I'm passionate about it, so I feel like I'm ready to take on that challenge. And we have physics drop-in, which I go to whenever I can. There's always at least 2 teachers there, if not more, always coming around helping you with questions. That's been really great for me. Yeah.
Lisa and Abby, anything to add?
I was going to say, from my experience, I think it's really important to have a solid base in your GCSE knowledge when you come to the sciences, which is why there are kind of, grades you need to get to come do them. Like, there is definitely a reason for that, because very much you're basing things on what you already know, but they're really good at going over bit because they know that some people will be stronger on some bits and not as strong on other bits. So they're really good at going over the stuff that you've learned at GCSE and then you build on them. So, but yeah, it's good to have a good base. And I was just scaring Matilda with the fact that I thought that I found more of a gap between year 1 and year 2 physics than GCSE and year 1 physics of A-level. So,
That's
yeah.
Fair. Liesl?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, definitely like further maths, if you've had the opportunity to do it at GCSE, it's like, it definitely helps with year 1 maths, but if you don't do it because you don't have the option to, don't feel that that's going to put you at a disadvantage, because like half people in my class did further maths, half didn't, but the teachers teach you like it's all brand new content. So even if people have covered differentiation before, don't feel like just because you haven't done it you're a step behind, because they really go over it as if everyone's new to it, and it like they really work through it. So I would say don't feel like scared.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of opportunities to work abroad. I'm trying to think, I've had colleagues disappear, certainly off to, I mean, no language barrier, but disappear off to Australia, plenty of mining out there. I've had physics people that I know disappear off to CERN. So for those of you that know, there's a large particle accelerator underneath the Alps around Geneva. And obviously the language there mainly is French, but you're right, the international language is English, and they haven't had any problems with adapting to that at all. So yeah, it does open many more opportunities up actually for us. But if you can learn a language as well, then you'll certainly fit in slightly better.
Yeah, and in fact, I'll just use Nikki's PowerPoint a little bit and go back a bit. Deb, who came in and spoke to our Women in STEM group last year, although she did Spanish, she did a placement year as part of her chemical engineering degree in Lyon, so worked in France for a while. And where's Jess gone? There we go. Jess, as part of her placement, and I think now that she's graduated, is working at Tesla in Germany, so lots of international options there. But yeah, interesting question. Thank you very much.
Specifically because you mentioned further maths, personally, I haven't even started the further maths content, but because you entirely start with maths content and it's very, very similar. So honestly, I think if you work hard enough for your GCSEs and you go over all of the content and you feel confident enough with it, and even if you do the new starters work before any of the summer, that will prepare you more than enough.
I would also say, in terms of that, if you do want to get that little bit step ahead, Bison maths videos were really good. I've watched so many of them because they just they draw on that GCSE knowledge really well. They're really well explained. I mean, I believe the college do provide textbooks, which will be at a cheaper price. You can also get them early if you want to, which I did because I was a bit obsessed with maths. So I bought them early and just started skim reading that. But even if not that, look up the syllabus and just so you have a little bit of familiarization with those concepts, because that really helped me. Like, even if you don't know exactly what it is, when a teacher says something, you're like, I've heard that somewhere before. And then it's like you've got that pathway in your brain which has been ignited and it's flashing. It's like, beep, beep, beep. So it's just familiarising yourself a little bit with some new concepts can go a long way, I think, yeah.
Lisa, you mentioned the further maths. Did you do further maths GCSE or no?
Yeah, I did further maths, but
Okay.
I'd say genuinely just really revise your GCSEs. I know you're obviously going to be doing that already, but if you have a really strong basis of trigonometry, algebra, those are especially because I enjoy pure. But if you have a really strong basis of those, when you apply those concepts to the A-level content, if you that's easy for you to just do, you'll just be already a step ahead compared to people that are still trying to familiarise themselves with stuff that they did at GCSEs but maybe weren't confident on. So yeah.
Yeah, we very much frame our maths syllabus to assume that no one's done further maths GCSE, and then those that have just seen some of the bits before. So yeah, it's just, we have a lot of new starters work which will be available for all subjects that we would advise you do. And actually, as some of these guys have said, we take it in maths and we check you've done it. So yeah, very much make sure you do those, and that puts you in a really good position to do those.
I think especially now, there is quite a lot of companies, so I guess probably at college level, for instance, that will do insight days. So I know I attended quite a few. I remember I did a insight day at Sky, or Surrey Uni did a work experience week. A lot of companies have dedicated women in STEM, women in data, women in whatever, because obviously they're trying to kind of increase the uptake. I know, for instance, my company I think more so for university level, but they do a lot of kind of women in events. So I think definitely have a look at companies, like if there are any companies that you've heard of, or even just Googling like Insight Days for women, STEM related, you'll find quite a few of them will come up, probably a lot more than would have maybe like 10 years ago. But yeah, I would definitely recommend like trying to do Insight Days. They also act as like a good stepping stone for like future experiences later on. So like I did a Morgan Stanley Insight Day in year 13, and that like fast tracked me to a spring week that they did when I was in my first year at uni. So definitely have a look out. But yeah, I think for your level, probably like Insight Days.
Yeah, so I would say not necessarily specific to women in STEM, but I know a lot of companies will offer kind of summer internships or placements or work experience opportunities. And then kind of when you get into the workplace, I know there's lots of kind of cross-company groups now that have been set up for kind of women in data. I know there's a big women in data conference every year, and there's various groups that have been set up to support women, and various companies as well. So my company runs a specific kind of leadership course for women as well to kind of inspire future leaders, and particularly to help women who haven't maybe traditionally been in those more leadership roles, to help them get there. And mentorship schemes as well are available. So you would be paired up with a woman who is kind of further along in her career, and kind of you can talk to them and they work with you to kind of help you identify any barriers or opportunities that you might need. So there's lots of things out there. And I think, as you say, just Google it and you'll probably find you'll get loads and loads of hits, or talk to specific companies if you're interested in working with them at some point in the future as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I really promote to the Women in STEM group early is a charity called STEMettes, who run a lot of kind of women in specific fields, insights, and they also run a mentorship program for students of sixth form age. We are unfortunately out of time, so if you do have any additional questions, we'll be sticking around for a little bit after. Please feel free to ask. Before you leave though, can I please ask you, where are we? There we go. If you wouldn't mind just scanning that QR code and filling out the short survey. Your feedback is so important to us to help improve these events and make them as good as we could be. So thank you very much. And please, big round of applause for our students and our speakers.